Given that this is inside the audition,
Yes.
can you take us behind the scenes into your own audition process and just walk us from your agent sends you the email saying, here's the breakdown, here's the script, to the time that you lay it down in a self-tape or live in the room?
Yeah, everything's self-tape first round now, isn't it? Yeah. The first thing I do is I take the script and I retype it in my own format, because I have a certain format that I like to see it in. And I keep the stage directions on there, but I make them 8 font and I make my words all 14. So I can reference them, but I don't see them. And then if I have a day or two to look at this, then I will put it away and then I will look at it right before I go to sleep so that I can dream about it. If it's a big script and I don't have much time to learn it, then I don't know if this is a good habit or a bad habit, but I will put it on a tape and I will just listen to it in a loop. And it's just kind of like, I'm generally a visual learner, but I think there is part of me that also is an oral learner as well. Yep. And so just having that, and I'm not really learning it, but then when I turn the tape off and I go back, there's something about, I'm able to connect to the words. I'm able to make sense of them quicker, it seems. So, okay. So then I get to the part where I go through each line. I break it down. This is Tom's technique where you break it down. You say, what am I fighting for? Who am I talking to? What's my relationship to everything in this? And then you start looking for all the extras. Where's the humor? Where are the opposites? Where am I playing games and all this sort of thing? You guys know what I'm talking about, but yeah. And then where's the architecture of the scene? And I go through and I do all those tick boxes that I think Tom covers so beautifully. It just makes it so logical. And then let's just do this and this and this and this. And by the time I finish that, with the listening, with the learning, just looking at the lines before I go to sleep, and then with breaking it down, generally I've got it memorized. So then I bring it up and I did an amazing audition with Brandon, and that was so great being able to work that with you, Brandon, and that I absolutely love that. Mm-hmm. But generally, most of my auditions are for smaller roles that I can put together without having somebody read in with me, because what I do is and I've already told you this once and you just laugh at me, but I memorize both lines and then I say their lines in my head and then I do a voiceover add-on later, which is not everybody likes that, but generally I've done thousands of self-tapes, so I'm good at it now. So that's just something I do. So anyway, I tape the lines up under my camera, set everything up on my tripod. I've got my backdrop. I've got my soft boxes I've got here. Just click everything on, and then I go through it. Then I listen to it. I know some people hate to listen to their recordings, but I listen to it. I watch it. I circle the words I got wrong, and then I do it a couple more times, and then usually I send it off like that. I try not to do it too many times, because then or if I need to do it more, then I go away for a bit, let it rest, because otherwise it gets kind of, it gets frustrating, and then you're not able to do your best work. Uh-oh, we lost Brandon.
I think he's coming back. He had a cough or sneeze.
Was it something I said?
No, never.
I'm out of here.
So yeah, that's generally my process. Yeah.
Cool. I mentioned it earlier when talking about getting enrolled for Actors Audition Club, just the importance of following a checklist. But it sounds like from the time you get it to the time you tape it, you're pretty much into audition protocol and you're following a certain process pretty much every time. So it's familiar to you, and you're not doing it different every single time. You got your system that works for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I do practice self-tapes every day, so that when I get an audition in, it's just, I don't have to think about it. It's like, you can think about the character, you can think about what the journey is. You don't have to think about the technical stuff, which is great.
Question about you mentioned recording the lines. Are you recording just your lines, or are you recording all the lines in the scene and hearing both of them?
Oh, when I'm just learning, I
Yeah.
record everybody's lines.
Gotcha.
So I listen to their lines and I listen to my lines. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Um,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Brandon.
Is there a reason that you type it up on a computer rather than write it out when you're retyping it?
Yeah, I don't write very much, but I've heard that when you do write, your brain takes it in better. So
I mean, I think it sort of depends on the person, and I prefer writing it out just like handwritten, but like it's all sort of dependent on you, and I'm just curious as to why you prefer that.
I'm just a really fast typer.
Fair.
When I take notes in Tom's class, I can almost type as fast as people talk, which is great. So yeah, I'm fast. So writing just takes too long. But having said that, writing the lines out would probably be better because that gives more time to actually bring the words in. But yeah.
Pippa, can you speak a little bit about, you mentioned stage directions, you make them smaller. Can you just explain, I think Brandon and I know why in being in classes with Tom, but can you talk a little bit about why you might set the stage directions aside a little bit as compared to the lines?
There's a few reasons. First of all, some writers want to be sure that you understand what's going on. They'll say things like, says angrily. It's like they want to help, but things like that don't really help because that might not be how I'm deciding to fight this fight. So that's one reason. The second reason is because this might be part of a script that is going to be done very differently in the studio or on location, whereas I'm in my little self-tape box and I need to ignore the fact that I'm supposed to be playing tennis. I might physically, go with the energy that I would need or the breath control that I would have playing tennis, but I won't be playing tennis in my little self-tape box. So for that reason, I get rid of those. So anytime I make any choices, I want to make the choices based on what I'm saying and what I'm fighting for, and not what somebody else has told me needs to happen. But I keep them there. I don't just delete them altogether, because after I've worked with the text for a little while, then I'll go back and I'll read the stage directions and I'll say, did I miss any clues? Like yesterday, I had a class. There were a lot of stage directions. So I made them all tiny. I worked on the script, and then I went through and read for clues. And there were a couple little clues in there that then I was able to bring on to enhance my performance. But it was great that I had worked just with the text to start with.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Often too, the other thing is if it's a theater script, often those stage directions are from the first performance, how they had things blocked, so it might not apply.
Exactly.
And then the other thing that I think it helps with is your just spontaneity and keeping it fresh. Like some actors will see that and they're like, oh, this is the spot where I have to raise my eyebrow, or this is where I have the deep exhale, or this is where I stand up and this is where I sit down.
Yeah.
And Tom mentions this as well, as if they're seeing 50 to 100 people for this, and the production team or casting already knows, they know the lines and they know the scene. So if they're getting ahead of you, okay, this is where she's going to stand up, and this is where she's going to cry, and this is where she's going to sit back down, then there's no real life spontaneity to that. So that it's actually a simple way that you can separate your auditions from other people's is by, I don't want to say ignoring stage directions, but not putting stage directions above you as the actor and as the character and above the story, where it's, well, it says I got to sit here, so I got to sit. It's like, well, okay, well, on the day
the
when you
worst
shoot
one
it, you might
is
not sit.
the worst one is cries.
Right.
It's just like, yeah.
Right.
That, because if you read that and say, oh, cries, has to cry, you can get so frustrated trying to cry that you're never able to cry. So
yeah. Right. Yeah. And in real life, no one ever is trying to trying to cry.
Exactly.
Everyone's
Trying
trying
not to cry.
to not cry.
Fighting crying.
Fighting crying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, it's funny though. A lot of people will feel like that is like the number one, like I've known people, and maybe I've been there at some point in my career where I was like, oh, I'm failing this scene because I'm not getting to the point where I need to cry. I'm not doing what they want me to do here, which is definitely a trap in some scenes.